Okay, so let's start. Today we are diving into one of our most important topic in cybersecurity. You may have already read it. It's web application security. So web apps are everywhere. You can see in banking, shopping, social media, healthcare, government portals, college systems, right? We had ERP, all that systems. Maybe you have it, or maybe you all are using social medias, right? And we rely on them heavily. They have become the primary target for attackers as well. So, today we are going to understand the security web apps, why they are so critical, what the biggest risks are, and the web's top 10, how they help us create safer applications. Okay, so why care about application security? As you can read, 90% of breach data. This is an eye opening number, okay? Almost all major breaches begin with an attacker exploiting a web application and not hacking the server directly or not hijacking the network, but simply abusing a flaw in a website. That means a single vulnerability input can lead to a complete data breach. Any attacks you have heard about, please mention it in the chat box. See, the lecture is going to be as long as you are interested. If you want to leave, you can leave right now. Okay, so another thing is financial impact. When attackers break in organizations, they often face a massive financial losses. So we must investigate the breaches, notify the affected users, rebuild system they trust, and also sometimes pay legal penalties. Even a single startup can collapse due to this security incident. Now, don't go running on our website, it's completely secured. Okay. Another thing is common exploits. Attackers reuse the same well known techniques, like some of them are SQL injections, XSS, credential stuffing, security misconfiguration, and so on. So, and these aren't even advanced tricks, like they have been from a long time. They are predictable, easy to automate, and they are extremely effective till now. So, in conclusion, web security matters because insecure apps impact real people, their privacy, money, safety, and it's not just about technology, it's about protecting the digital trust. Okay, so I see many people are online now. We'll just go now to the most famous OWASP top 10. You may have heard about OWASP. So, since the web is constantly evolving, we need an organization that continuously tracks this new risk and educates the world. So, that organization is OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP does the free security resources. It built tools like ZAP for testing, and it maintains a practice doc. Sorry, it maintains a best practice documentation. It's globally security professionalisms. Sorry, professionals. So you can think of OAPS as the security teacher for the entire software world. Whether you are a beginner or an expert, or you're going for an interview, OAPS guides you on what threat matters and how to defend against them. And guys, you need to start noting for it because you have to make notes for yourself, right? We are going to cross verify it again. Okay, so I have given you some points. The other things is OWASP top 10 is important because it's created from the data contributed by security researchers worldwide. And it isn't just theoretical, it's the real data attack. It highlights vulnerabilities that causes the most real world damage like breaches, account takeovers, financial loss. The third thing, it doesn't say, see, here's the problem. It also explains why it happens, how it happens, and what we have to do to prevent it. So developers can immediately start fixing or designing safer systems. And the last thing, it's a living proof. So Technology evolves, cloud systems are there, APIs, microservices, AI integrations, and so on. So, but along with this are those attacks. So, updates the top 10 regularly to reflect these new threats, and it's not the static list, it evolves with with the web. Do you all know the latest time this OWASP top 10 was updated? Yeah, please tell me the number. When was it? When was it updated? Yeah, OAPS is updated this year, 2025. Okay. So let's get a quick overview at these types of attack. Then we'll go on practical demonstrations. The first type, this was also first last year. So what broken access is? It basically determines what users are allowed to do, and when this fails, attackers can access a function that should be off limits. Like if I change a URL parameter from user 123 to 456, I can get access to other user without their permission. So this is dangerous because it exposes private data, allows unauthorized access, and can lead to complete account takeover. The second thing, okay, where's Huh. The second thing is security misconfiguration. This is one of the simple yet the most common issues. Like developers often forget to disable default settings, debug modes, unnecessary services, or they leave insecure configuration in productions. For example, you already know about it. There's admin user and ID password for admin level access, or the debug pages are exposed to the public, or this directory listing enabled. If you all have any doubt, you can write it in the chat box. Our team will reply to your doubts. Okay. Okay, now let's go to the third type. This is software supply chain failures. This reflects a growing modern threat. Most apps use third parties libraries, frameworks, and packages. So if any of those get compromised, your entire application is at risk. Fourth one is cryptographic failure. I know you already know about this. This happens when the sensitive data is stored or transmitted insecurely. The famous example is HTTPS and HTTP. Okay, so another examples are storing passwords in plain text, or storing outdated hashing algorithms like MD5, which is very easy to crack, or not encrypting sensitive data such as credit card info and so on. And you know why this is dangerous, because if an attacker gets access to the database, they immediately see everything. So anyone knows which encryption should we use for this, or which hash types, which are the most strongest hash types encryptions we should rather use? Two factor authentication is not a type of encryption. Yeah, it adds a security to your account, but it's not exactly encryption. Now the fifth one, our most favorite, SQL injection, code injection, right? So this is one of the oldest yet most persistent vulnerability. Occurs when untrusted input is executed as the code by the system. The famous one, which we use for login, we all know this one. And it matters because attackers can read, modify, delete database data, can lead to RC. RC stands for remote code execution, and it's very easy to exploit if protection aren't in place. We are going to see a practical demonstration today on injection 2. The sixth one is insecure design. This refers to the flaw in the architect before the code is even written, like password reset tokens that never expire, or there's no rate limiting on login attempts. I guess we have some interns from Parul University, right? I have read few names. Okay, I guess so. They are not available today. When they will be available, I'll tell you a secret about Parul University. I have tested its site. Anyways, let's move on forward. The seventh one is authentication failure. Authentication is like the front door of your application, right? If it's weak, attackers can walk in right away. And this is also the biggest mistake common people have, like using weak and common passwords everywhere. Here here is where multi-factor authentication comes. Someone did mention it previously, I guess. Okay, and eighth one, this is software or data integrity failure. This focuses on protecting data from being modified silently. Example, you can say software updates without verifying digital signatures, or there's CI or CD pipelines accepting unsigned artifacts. And obviously, this is dangerous because attackers can inject malicious code into trusted processes. Now, the last two, logging and alerting failures. So, you know, right, that many breaches go undetected for months just because their systems fail to log suspicious behavior. Some We can take some common examples, like there's no logs for failed login attempts, so you never know if there's a brute force attempt on your website. Another thing is there's no alert when admin login was at an unusual time, like 3 a.m. And the impact of this is incidents response becomes impossible, and attackers can stay hidden a little longer, right? And our last is mishandling of exceptional conditions. This refers to how applications behave when something unexpected happens, like when an error occurs and the app displays full stack traces with database paths or credentials. So, what can happen here? Attackers can use these details to reconnaissance and to plan deeper attacks. Okay, so that's it for the theory part. Okay, so we can stop this attacks like C. Okay, so OWASP top 10. This is not just a list, it's a guide to understand where this real world attacks happen. If you go to the official site of OWASP, wait, I'll show you. You'll get remediations there. Let's surf through it. Already able to be ahead of most beginners in web security. Now, let's go to the practical part. You all have installed Linux. For those who don't, they can still perform it on Windows itself. Today we'll look at a little basics, and on next session probably we'll go to more advanced level. Okay. Yeah, so for today we are using DVWA as our target. You guys know what DVWA is? Yeah, and do you know what's a Docker? Okay, some of you don't know what DVWA or Docker is. So DVWA is also known as Damn Vulnerable Web Application. It's like intentionally insecure, and it's built for training and learning. So today we are going to run it safely inside Docker. So Docker is basically like a tiny isolated computer inside your real computer. So it helps us to run something without risking our systems. Got it, everyone? You can do one thing. If you want, you can run practical side by side with me, or I'll show you how to run them, and then you'll get the recorded lecture. So if there's any doubt, you can just go through the video again. Okay, so for installing Docker, first of all, we can go docker.com. I'll be using simply the Docker desktop for Windows because it's GUI based and more easy for me to use. I already have it, so I won't be installing it. If you want to install, just go at docker.com and download Docker for your desktop, and it will start something like this. You'll also need to enable WSL2 backend if it's prompted. Sorry, not on this, the other search option. Are you all guys performing with me, or are you going to perform it later? Okay. And also for Linux, those who want to get more hands-on Linux, we have our blog on cyberwarlabblog.com. BBWE. Okay, cybersecurity is here. Labs, DVWM, got it. If you want, I'll just drop it in chat box. Wait. Yeah. So for those who are trying to install it on Linux, you just go on Linux, and there are some commands you need to type. This is for Windows. Okay, I've showed you the easier version for this. You need to install WSL first there, then your Docker. If it's if it's already installed, you can check it with Docker hyphen hyphen version, and then just create a file inside your Docker and pull the Docker files from vulnerables. You can go so on. You can just go through this blog. Is my screen not visible? Oh, wait, I'll share you the link. Okay, I have shared you the link. You can just go through it. Yeah. Okay, so for Windows, this is the DVWA thing we are using. To start, you can just simply start it using the start button. Now this will run on your local host at 80 or 80 something. Learn more. Hmm. It's on 8080. You have to just log in it with admin password. Like your username is admin and password is password itself. Okay. So I guess it's visible now, right? So for first day, we didn't actually go through anything technical. We were just getting familiar with the rules for it. I'll talk about it later after we complete our practical session. So I guess everyone till now is with me. Yeah. Now let's get the fun part started. So at the very first, we'll start with SQL injection. Okay. So basically, in this, it asks for a user ID, and you have to enter one user ID. And when you submit it, it gives you your first name and surname, right? So this is a normal behavior. What actually happens is the in the backend is, let me open my notepad. Okay. So what actually happens in the backend is SQL works in this way. There's select, delete, update, and those options. So when we enter for user ID 1, it selects from users where your ID is 1. Okay, this is what happens actually in the background. And now to perform the injection, we'll use our famous injection, which is 1 colon or colon this. So since you may have done this in, I guess it's also taught in school that true or true or true always equals to true, right? So yeah, here you can see what just happened is this SQL turned into something which for which the values are always true. So and since the values are always true, the database returns all the users. We bypass the logic and force the database to reveal everything. Hence the all the users listed. So this is a demonstration of how dangerous injections are. Like a small text input can completely bypass authentication or dump the entire databases. That's why OWASP ranks this still as one of the most critical risks. Okay, so now let's go to XSS reflected one. Okay, now here we have got a field where we have to enter a name. Now let's try with something normal again, like for example, Cyberwall app. So it gave us again a normal input, right? Now let's try injecting a script, which is script alert, and in single column you're supposed to write what you want to alert, like XSS is dangerous maybe, and script close. So let's try submitting it, and we got a pop-up whatever we wrote in alert. So this proves that our input was executed, and it was not treated as a text, it was treated as a script. So if this was a real website, an attacker could steal cookies or redirect users to a phishing page using this attack. And this vulnerability happened because the developer trusted user input and printed it without sanitizing or encoding it. Are we good yet? Yeah, we are, right? Um, MySQL, actually, it's not a rocket science thing. You just need to know how the attacks work in the backend. You need to start using least privilege access and proper user data sanitization, those things. Now, let's go with our third attack, which is command injection. Now, command injection is basically what allows attackers to run system commands through a web application. Like you all know, there's a server somewhere which is redirecting us to these things, right? So this is extremely dangerous because it can lead to full system compromise. Now, for this, here we can see there's a form that is asking you to ping an IP, right? So we'll just ping a normal IP, for example, my local host. Just a second, guys. And we'll submit it. See, so what did it return to us? The some normal ping output. Okay. Now let's try executing an attack. You already saw I have executed some attacks here, and who am I? So let's try again with 127.0.0.1 and which basically had one more command along with your actual command, which is pinging the IP. Now when we submit it, you got this, your current server user. Because what we did was we entered and told the server that after ping, run the another command. So imagine if an attacker chained more powerful commands like maybe the password backup file, or maybe tried deleting our data, maybe tried creating a reverse shell, all those things. So these